Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today we're talking about 12 ways to treat hyperthyroidism naturally. And this is an important topic because thyroid conditions in general are kind of an epidemic in our society. We're dealing with all kinds of hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism. It seems like most of the attention is being drawn to hypothyroidism, and that's for good reason. It seems that most people experience hypothyroidism when they are dealing with a thyroid disorder. However, addressing hyperthyroidism is important as well because many people still deal with this. It seems like a lot of the symptoms are almost the opposite. However, very often it seems like the underlying causes are very similar between the two. So something that's important to understand before we get into this is that almost always hyperthyroidism is rooted in chronic inflammation and autoimmunity. And we're going to talk, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what are the most common causes of that, and then ways that you can support your body and potentially overcoming something like this. So before we get into it, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Michael Dugan. I'm a researcher and writer for drjockers.com. I'm also a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. So I work with people to overcome, to help put together health plans to help their bodies become stronger and overcome things like this. And so, you can see I'm a big fan of nature, and here's some of my family. This is my brother, my girlfriend over here on the bottom left. So let's get into it. Often characterized or diagnosed as Graves' disease in a traditional medical model, hyperthyroid symptoms generally manifest similar to almost like you're being overstimulated, right? If you're drinking a ton of coffee, and it's very opposite of what somebody would experience with hypothyroidism. So you get things like sweating, you get nervousness, you get tremors in some cases, like muscle twitching, nausea, diarrhea. You even get things like heart arrhythmia. And then one of the big signs is weight loss that you can't explain, right? You're not trying to lose weight, but maybe you're trying to put on weight, and maybe you're just trying to maintain a weight, and you're just losing weight, and you feel just overstimulated all the time. These are key signs of hyperthyroidism. And then even in some cases, you'll get a goiter, which is essentially swelling and inflammation of the thyroid gland. And then some people even experience bulging eyes. So those are some of the key signs. And, something that's important to emphasize is that with a lot of conditions like this, there can be overlapping symptoms. And so it can be hard to go off of symptoms alone, and that's why sometimes doing testing can be very helpful. So if you're experiencing a lot of these things, and you've maybe tried a lot of things that were claiming to be solutions to your problems, and you're struggling to overcome these things, it might be helpful to get some kind of functional lab work done. We have a complete thyroid panel, and I put a link to that in the description, but that can help you. If you get that done, it'll actually give a ton of signs about your chronic inflammation status, your thyroid hormone status, all that kind of thing, and really highlight areas of attention and help people like me or one of our other health coaches really help you put together a plan to just take your health to the next level. So what are the traditional medical treatments for this? First of all, you got immunosuppressive medications. Like I said, hyperthyroidism is almost always related to autoimmune conditions. And so what happens with autoimmunity is that your immune system starts attacking tissues it's not supposed to. There are a lot of reasons for this, but essentially, one of the biggest ones is just chronic inflammation. If you think about how the immune system targets certain areas of the body to be healed, drawing attention from the immune system, it uses inflammation. And so, if you cut yourself, you're going to get some kind of swelling or some kind of inflammatory reaction in that area, which draws the immune system towards it to basically help you heal any threats or address any threats that may have germs or whatever may have entered that cut. So when you have chronic inflammation and it's all throughout the body, it can be really confusing to the immune system. And that's when we get things like thyroid conditions, autoimmune thyroid conditions, where the immune system is attacking the thyroid. There are a lot of cases of this, but that's just one. So basically, you take a medication to lower your immune system or inhibit your immune system so that this attack on the thyroid isn't as bad. But this can cause a lot of secondary problems, because we're also dealing with pathogenic threats on a daily basis. And if our immune system can't handle those, there's going to be some problems. So number 2, you got radioactive iodine. And, I think most people understand the importance of iodine for thyroid hormone conversion in the actual thyroid gland and or just thyroid hormone production. And so the iodine or the thyroid readily takes up iodine. And so when you inject or you ingest radioactive iodine, the thyroid will take that up and it becomes poisoned and it essentially destroys the thyroid gland. And so, you might have taken care of the symptoms of hyperthyroidism. However, there's going to be a lot of there could be potentially a lot of side effects, as well as needing to take a synthetic thyroid hormone replacement for the rest of your life. And then number 3 is just a straight up removal of the thyroid gland, right? And you can see steps or the treatments 2 and 3, the radioactive iodine and the thyroid removal, they essentially treat the thyroid like it's the problem. However, you're gonna see that really there's underlying factors in the body that can influence thyroid function, and those things should be addressed first. And oftentimes you can get really good results with that. So, like I said a couple of times already, hyperthyroidism is heavily rooted in autoimmunity and chronic inflammation. So these are the 12 areas that seem to contribute to autoimmunity and chronic inflammation the most. So first of all, and this is a huge one, something that people don't think is as powerful as it is your blood sugar stability. Today we have more people who are just consuming tons and tons of sugars and carbs on a daily basis. And that's really their primary source of energy. Their bodies are being constantly bombarded by carbs and sugars, and this leads to metabolic dysfunction. Leads to insulin resistance, leads to tons of inflammation. And so the first thing, I'm going to talk about the action steps in a second, but just know that poor blood sugar stability is going to create tons of inflammation, and it's going to do nothing but contribute to any kind of autoimmunity you already have going on in your body. So next you have low vitamin D levels. This is just something that's super common in people with autoimmune diseases or just immune system related disorders, because vitamin D is just so important for regulating the immune system. And it's across the board. We see on lab work dealing with people who have autoimmune diseases is that they have very low vitamin D levels. So getting those up can be super powerful for basically taming your immune system and lowering this immune reaction against the thyroid. Next, you have mitochondrial dysfunction. This is a huge one because the mitochondria they're little structures in your cells that produce all the energy in your body. Your cells need this energy to carry on regular functions. If you don't have it, then they don't work. And when you have dysfunctional mitochondria, think about mitochondria like the engine in a car. Gas goes in, and what comes out is energy, but also like toxic byproducts. Think about exhaust. So mitochondria are no different. They take in sugar, or they take in fatty acids or ketones, and they use these to make energy, but they also create oxidative stress. And you want to think about that like the exhaust in your car. So if you have poorly functioning mitochondria, it's going to produce less energy and produce more oxidative stress, which is from the lowest level possible on your body, is just going to create tons of inflammation. And then this is from below a cellular level. So this is really important to address because, that can affect every tissue in your body. So mitochondrial dysfunction, it will be really important for taming autoimmunity and just lowering inflammation and making sure your cells have the energy they need. Next is gut dysbiosis. And not just gut dysbiosis, but also, food sensitivity is things like leaky gut. The gut is a huge source of inflammation if it's not in a healthy state. So you get an imbalance in gut bacteria. You're eating foods that are destructive to your gut lining, such as wheat, or if you have a sensitivity to dairy or eggs and you're eating those things on a regular basis, it's going to create tons of inflammation. And over time, you compromise the barrier of your gut, which is designed to only let certain things through, and for a very good reason. When this barrier is compromised, you get larger food particles coming through, and it is very confusing to the immune system. And so as the immune system tries to fight off these things that, they're just food particles, but your immune system thinks they're foreign invaders, you, instead of actually fighting them off, you start developing allergies, and you start creating tons of inflammation. So making sure your gut is healthy will be a big one as well. Next, you have low glutathione, and this is really relevant to the mitochondrial dysfunction aspect we just talked about. But glutathione is your master antioxidant in your body. It's designed to go through and pick up that oxidative stress, neutralize it, and make sure it doesn't harm your tissues. So if you have low glutathione, especially in combination with mitochondrial dysfunction or other aspects of chronic inflammation, it's kind of just like the perfect storm for autoimmunity. And so making sure your glutathione levels are optimal and just your antioxidant levels in general will be really big. So next, you got poor omega-3 or omega-6 to 3 ratio. Most people in our society are consuming tons of omega-6 fats from processed foods, vegetable oils, canola, soy, that kind of thing, and not enough omega-3 from things like wild-caught fish, walnuts, flax seeds, chia, and even hemp seeds, things like that. And so even some algae have omega-3s in them. But what most people don't understand is that omega-6 fatty acids are used in a pathway in the body called the icosanoid pathway that is designed to make inflammation. It's designed to create inflammation, which is an important process. As I talked about, the immune system uses that inflammation. But when you have too much omega-6 fatty acids and not enough omega-3s, it can almost, it can push the body towards the tendency of being inflamed rather than only inflamed when necessary. So increasing your intake of omega-3 rich foods and decreasing omega-6 foods that are high in omega-6s, especially processed foods, will be really important. So next, upper cervical subluxation. This is a principle founded in chiropractic medicine. And so what the idea is behind this is that, the nerves that go to your thyroid gland from your brain, actually, they start in the brain, they go into the spine, and they branch off of the spine in the cervical region. So if you have a misalignment in your spine, whether it's due to trauma or poor posture, a lot of people have text necks nowadays. They're looking at their phones, bent over, sitting at desks, that kind of thing. It can put pressure on those nerves and inhibit the optimal flow of communications between your brain and your thyroid. So that can be something that's really important, going to see a chiropractor on a regular basis and instilling some kind of postural restoration program on a regular basis as well. Next, you have environmental toxins. This is important because it's similar to just chronic inflammation, right? It's very distracting to the immune system, and a lot of toxins are actually Things like pesticides are harmful to the gut. They're going to contribute to gut dysbiosis and leaky gut, those things we talked about. Things like heavy metals, particularly mercury, can become lodged in fatty tissues, things like the brain, and in particular the hypothalamus and the pituitary glands, which is where the communication with the thyroid gland originates from. So making sure you're not toxic in heavy metals or pesticides can be super important. Engaging in everyday activities to help eliminate toxins from your body. And we'll talk about some of those, but also just making sure that you are reducing your exposure to those things. Next, you have methylation. This is a biochemical pathway in the body that is really responsible, or it plays a large role in detoxification and metabolizing certain metabolic wastes. So, it's very common in people with chronic inflammatory conditions that the methylation pathway has been inhibited in some way. And things that, this can be due to genetic defects, or it can be caused by, certain nutrient deficiencies like B vitamins in particular. So if you want to read more on that, a lot of people will know if they have this or not. But sometimes, that's not always the case. So you can go read more about methylation. Just go to drjockers.com and search, methylation or MTHFR. And there's some good articles on that. And I'll also put a link to that in the description. So next you have lack of sleep. So many restorative processes happen when you're sleeping. And in particular, your brain, you have something in your brain called the glymphatic system, which is like your lymphatic system that's throughout your body. But when you're sleeping, your cells in your brain actually, they shrink. And so that you can clear out metabolic wastes, and just, make sure your brain is in an optimal state the next day when you wake up. And that's just one aspect of the restorative properties of sleep. But making sure you're getting really good sleep on a regular basis will, just make sure your brain is operating at its optimal level, being able to communicate with the thyroid, and making sure that inflammation doesn't become extremely out of control, along with these other areas as well. Next, you have EMF exposure. This is important now more than ever. We have phones, we have Wi-Fi routers, we have electronic devices everywhere, and these things all emit electronic fields. And it's been hard to understand how these things would affect our health for a long time. But if you think about how the body works, it's a very electrical. We're very electrical beings. Our brain will communicate with our organs and whatnot with electrical signals. And your mitochondria actually are the process in which energy is produced at the mitochondrial level is an exchange of electrons and protons. So it's, in essence, it is an electrical process. And being exposed to these non-native, these unnatural electric fields can actually interfere with normal processes in our body and become highly inflammatory. So minimizing EMF exposure is really important. And another thing is getting outside and getting barefoot on the ground on a daily basis to help restore our body's natural negative charge that is basically robbed from us when we are around these EMFs all the time. So yeah, that's really important. So next you have high stress and poor breathing habits. And this is something that, many people don't think about. If you're chronically stressed and you have this mindset of just being stressed out all the time, you're anxious, that can be inflammatory to the body as well, because your brain will interpret that as an immediate threat. And so the body has evolved to essentially be able to evade immediate threats in the environment by spiking cortisol levels and increasing energy for short term. However, it doesn't understand the difference between a mentally created stressor or or an actual immediate stressor in the environment. So if you're chronically stressed out, you're going to be spiking your cortisol levels all the time. And so over time, that becomes very, very, very harmful on the body, and of course, inflammatory as well. So making sure you are mitigating that stress in any way possible, making sure you're, you have an empowering mindset, and making sure you're taking adequate deep breaths. It can be just being conscious of that can be very helpful. So a lot of these, we're going to talk about 12 ways to actually treat hyperthyroidism naturally, help your body overcome hyperthyroidism. And based on the last slide, you probably have guessed a lot of these, but I'm just going to run through them so to clarify a little bit, and I'll allow you to take something away from this video and just apply it in your life and really see some benefits. So first of all, good hydration with clean water is probably the most important. Like I said, we're electrical beings. However, our body can't complete electrochemical reactions in the body without adequate hydration. It's the fluid in which those processes occur. And so first of all, we need to drink enough water. Second of all, we need clean water. So if you're drinking tap water, that's probably something you're going to need to address, either getting a high quality passive water filter like a Big Berkey, or getting a reverse osmosis system for your home. It can be really important, because if your water has things like chlorine in it, chlorine can go into your gut, damage your gut bacteria, and contribute to leaky gut. If it's got fluoride in it, fluoride is similar to iodine in some ways, and that can actually compete for iodine for a space in the thyroid. So that can be super important, particularly for thyroid conditions. And then things like heavy metals can find their way into water. And, we talked about the problems with those. So getting either a passive water filter like the Big Berkey or a reverse osmosis system for your home can be super important. Next is a healing diet. And a healing diet in our eyes on drdoctors.com is essentially one that stabilizes blood sugar. I talked about how important that was. Stabilizing blood sugar can help bring down inflammation levels tremendously. And that alone seems to help people a ton, just feel better on a regular basis and improve their body's function overall. And another aspect to a healing diet is making sure it's full of whole foods that are dense in antioxidants and phytonutrients. So, so how does this come together? It's tons of healthy fats, things like avocados, coconut products, grass-fed cuts of meat, grass-fed butter. Those can all be really good. Even pasture-raised eggs can be really good. And then just really removing processed foods, removing high sugar foods, and just removing high, fruits for the most part, and just loading up on plenty of fibrous vegetables, and consuming foods in a way that limits your exposure to toxins. So that means eating organically. If you're going to eat meat, it means getting pasture raised ground animals. It means getting wild caught fish. If you're going to get fish, some of the best source would be, like Alaskan sockeye salmon, or, sardines, because they don't collect as many heavy metals. So yeah, a healing diet. And there's also a great article on drdoctors.com. It's called 5 Benefits of a Healing Diet, I believe. Just search healing diet, and that will come up. That's a good article as an introduction. If you're new to this, that's just a really good introduction to how to eat well. Next is optimize vitamin D. We talked about how important vitamin D was for your immune system. So taking between 1,000 to 2,000 international units per 25 pounds of body weight is a great place to start. Start at 1,000, try that for a couple weeks, and then maybe bump it up to 2,000 per 25 pounds of body weight. And really, you want to get if you're measuring this with functional lab work, the thyroid panel that I mentioned earlier can actually also measures vitamin D levels. You want to get it up between 60 and 100 on that scale. And that's optimal. A lot of people with these autoimmune thyroid disorders are down in the 20 to 30 range. So that's really important. Next is supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids. Of course, you can eat wild caught fish and that kind of thing, but supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids can be very powerful as well. And we have many options for that. And if you are, if you're somebody who's a vegan or a vegetarian, then this is equally as important for you. And finding some way to get that in, you can eat walnuts and flax seeds and chia seeds and hemp seeds. Those are all going to give you alpha linoleic acid, which is one omega-3, but the ones that are really important for your brain and your nervous system are EPA and DHA. And you don't get those from plant-based sources except for algae. And so there are actually companies now that are making algae-based omega-3 supplements. However, a lot of them are being questioned for their use of, growing their algae in questionable environments or using GMO algae and things like that. So I actually put a link to one that I think is very good in the description. So if you're a vegan or vegetarian, definitely check that out. Next, improve mitochondrial function. We talked about this, and there's several ways you can do this. One of the safest and easiest ways is to follow a ketogenic diet. That can be extremely effective for upregulating mitochondrial function, and also just bringing down inflammation, reducing stress on the gut. So intermittent fasting is or ketogenic diet, and then intermittent fasting can be really powerful as well. So other things you can do for mitochondrial function are there's supplements that you can use, things like alpha lipoic acid. Antioxidants are very good. Acetyl L-carnitine. We have a mitochondrial support supplement. It is called Brain Supercharge, and that one is super high quality. I highly recommend it. I used it for a while when I was dealing with chronic fatigue and adrenal issues, and it was very helpful. And then other things you can do is just exercise on a regular basis, get out in the sun, get your bare feet on the ground, on the grass. And if you want to just be a little more advanced with it, doing things like cold showers can be really helpful too. Next is healing leaky gut. I talked about this, and we'll lump that in with avoid food sensitivities. Just healing the gut is super powerful just because it can be such a huge source of inflammation in the body. So that means following a healing diet. That means using targeted supplementation strategies if necessary. We'll use certain things if there's a tricky case with that. Doing things like intermittent fasting, and if you seem to have reactions to a lot of foods, you might want to do either an elimination diet or do lab work to identify any kind of food sensitivities that you have, because those can be, for example, I've dealt with people who had sensitivities to avocados and they had no idea. And so they were eating avocados every day, and they thought they were eating something healthy when in reality they were contributing to inflammation in the gut. So that's not super common that people are sensitive to avocados. That's just an example of how these food sensitivities can vary by person. So next is daily detoxification. Just sweating on a regular basis. Our primary methods of detoxification are our liver, kidneys, our digestive tract, and our skin. So just kind of supporting those pathways on a regular basis. So sweating on a regular basis, drinking plenty of water to help flush out the kidneys, especially in the morning, drinking plenty of water. Our general rule is, at least at the minimum, you want to drink half your body weight in ounces of water per day, but ideally even up to your body weight in ounces. And take that seems like a lot of water, but once you get clued into this, you start drinking, you start kind of pushing yourself to reach that limit. You'll start noticing that you feel better, and you notice when you're starting to get dehydrated and that kind of thing. So drinking plenty of water be really important. And then, eating plenty of fibrous foods that help keep your bowels moving. If you're somebody who struggles with constipation on a regular basis, investigating what the underlying causes of that are. We have articles on that on drdoctors.com. Temporary support, magnesium can be very helpful for that. Checking for heavy metals. I talked about this. You can test for them with a hair test, with a challenged urine test. We offer both of those on drdoctors.com. But even just going through some kind of just supporting your detox pathways on a regular basis can be very helpful. Next, improving stress and improving sleep. I talked about this. Stress is highly inflammatory. Poor sleep is highly inflammatory. So reducing stress, improving sleep, it's pretty straightforward. But a lot of people don't understand how to get better sleep. And I'll tell you, one huge thing to look out for is your exposure to blue light, 4 hours before bed. It's been said that, 6 seconds of exposure to blue light, whether it's from, our phone, our TV, our computer, can shut off melatonin production for 4 hours. So getting out of blue light 4 hours before bed is super important. So you can either shut off your devices, or you can actually buy blue light blocking glasses. I highly recommend those. I use those every night, and I've noticed my sleep has gotten better. And I'm somebody who struggled with sleep problems my whole life. Next is upper cervical chiropractic care, just making sure that, that your brain is properly communicating with your thyroid through those nerves that are branching from the cervical region of the spine. So, and just being aware of how you're holding your posture throughout the day. Next is reducing EMF exposure. And so, as I said, just to review this, EMF comes from our electronic devices. It comes especially from any device that uses Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or connects to a satellite. Those are all major emitters of EMF frequencies. And so just be cognizant of how many of these things are in your environment, and if there are any ways you can limit your exposure to them. So don't carry your phone on your body unless it's on airplane mode. You can use an air tube headset to reduce exposure to your head. Shutting off your Wi-Fi at night or hardwiring your internet is ideal, but I know a lot of people won't do that. Shutting off your Wi-Fi at night can be a big step. And then getting outside and just getting your bare feet on the ground helps to undo a lot of that effect as well. So those are 12 strategies to help your body overcome hyperthyroidism. So if you're somebody who's dealing with this, I hope this video was helpful. I hope it was presented in a manner that was digestible. And so if you have more questions, if you have questions about anything that I said, if you want some help on your journey to getting healthy, I want to offer you this opportunity to email me. I offer a free 10 to 15 minute intro call. We can hop on the phone or on Skype or whatever you prefer. Go through a little intro of what you're dealing with, and I can give you a little glimpse into what my approach might be, and then from there we can decide if we want to work together. If I think you're committed enough, that kind of thing. And I think we can get if you come committed and you're ready to make these changes in your life, I think we can get some good results. So thanks for watching, you guys. If you found this helpful and somebody else who could benefit from this information, I definitely recommend that you share this, pass it along to them. I'd be very grateful because this information needs to get out there. So thanks for watching. Have a great week.